Hello. So I just recently learned about shadow work, and what shadow work is versus what I thought it is, completely different. I thought, let me clean my mirror.
This is my perfectionist shadow that's gonna look at it later and be like, why was my mirror messy? Why did my mirror have fingerprints on it? But
when people said I'm doing shadow work or I just came across shadow work, I always thought people were doing weird things with shadows. I thought people were summoning things. Every time I heard shadow work, I was like, scroll, this is not for me. Carl Jung. Shadow work was developed by Swiss psychiatrist and physioanalyst Carl Jung. In the early 20th century, he performed the concept of the shadow self to describe the unconscious, repressed, or disowned parts of a person's personality, such as anger, trauma, or envy that are hidden from the conscious. Learning about shadow work and what it is and what it entails, it feels insane because I'm just like, wow, this is why we behave the way that we do, or this is why I behave the way that I do. The thing about shadow work, or why I think it's necessary for everyone, finding out all these bits and pieces of you that are repressed or that are hidden. And when they described shadow work from the video that I watched, they said it's sort of like this thing or this emotion that is created in your mind from a traumatic event. So, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be something that's emotionally like, oh, it's detrimental. It can be something as small as you being in traffic and somebody's behaving like an idiot on the road, and then that just creates this thing inside of you that is always very like angsty and very like, oh, every time you're in traffic. So the way they describe it is that every shadow that you have, or the shadow self that you have, will then have a protector, which I can describe in the most layman terms. It's something that sort of protects you from that feeling or that emotion that you got from that action. For example, I could give is, why did I do both? If maybe you were bullied in school, or even by your parents when you were growing up, or your neighbors or something, and maybe they bullied you for something like, I don't know, maybe you were like, I don't want to say an odd kid, I just want to say maybe you were just different. You wore super colorful clothes or something, and people teased you for that because you didn't dress like everybody else. You weren't wearing like top to bottom denim, so people teased you for it. And because people teased you for it, when you grow older, you then become a perfectionist who wants to dress and present in a certain way because you were bullied for how you presented before when you were a child. Or even just people who were bullied for something else, and then later on in life you just become a perfectionist, and then you're not able to do certain tasks because you want to make sure they're super perfect, and you end up not completing things on time because you want to make sure they're perfect. And it happens, I've seen this happen to me a lot of times, whereby because I'm trying to execute something perfectly, I then end up spending so much time on it, but then nobody knows that I'm spending all of this time on it. Just end up in this loop, but then by the time this project is due or whatever, it's too late. Because when you're younger, you were maybe ostracized or something for not being perfect, and then here you are just trying to be a perfectionist. So just realizing it, I'm like, damn, there's so many situations whereby these shadows and these protectors come out, and the protector is like being the perfectionist, the shadow is like the hidden self or the thing that you're trying to suppress in you. And so the protector is just there to sort of like guard you or shield you from getting hurt again. But then it also is not necessarily such a good thing because it just really holds you back from doing what you need to do. People who are like people pleasers, for example, I think people pleasers as well are born from shadows. And for example, maybe if you were younger and as a child, for you to be able to receive care, you had to appease your caregivers in a certain way. I think this sort of person just ends up growing up to being a people pleaser because you know that, okay, if I do X, Y, and Z for people, that way I will receive a certain level of affection, a certain level of love, which is just so crazy. And honestly, I think for people that are people pleasers or like a very giving, I was talking to a friend about it, it's important if you're this kind of person to recognize this in yourself and also just be able to speak up like when you need help, when you need something, to speak up to people who you know aren't selfish or anything, or aren't going to like reprimand you for whatever it is that you need, to be able to just speak to people and just be like, okay, I need this and this, I need this kind of care, I need this. Just, it's important to find those people, because you end up giving up so much of yourself during your lifetime. I don't even know what I'm doing with this eyeshadow. I'm just like mixing colors. I'm just mixing colors and sort of trying to heal my feminine energy, my feminine self, just by creating. Also, I think that shadow work for men and shadow work for women is completely different, because men, for example, are taught from a young age to be strong, never to cry, always be tough, all of these things that they teach little boys. And for girls, it's like, okay, you must always be gentle and never be tough, never stand up for yourself. Doing shadow work, I don't think necessarily has to mean repressing one side or the other. I think it's more of just accepting the different aspects of you, the different sides of you. You don't have to like hide anything. And I think that's what happens to a lot of people. People just end up hiding these aspects of themselves, and then at some point they explode. And it's so hot. How is it raining and it's this hot? Yo! I started thinking to myself, when did I learn to hide parts of myself to be loved? Like, when did I learn this? How did this ever come to be? I don't know if it's knowing or unknowingly. Sometimes people will praise children for being quiet and, not being a bother. And I think perhaps when children hear that sort of praise, they then know, okay, I have to be quiet, I have to not be a bother. If a child breaks a cup or something, and then parents get really angry and they start yelling at the kid, why did you break this? How are you so careless? Da, 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 da. But like, if an adult in a restaurant breaks a cup, the restaurant is just gonna, clean it up. Nobody's gonna yell at you, no one's gonna shout at you, no one is gonna do anything. It's just like, oh, that was a mistake. Somebody comes, cleans it up, it's done. Worst thing that can happen is that they make you pay for it. That's the worst thing that can happen. But it's like, why is it when it comes to children, people are so quick to like get really angry at kids for doing something that adults wouldn't get judged for? I don't know if I'm making any sense. It's like really raining outside. Like, I think we struggle with permission. We feel like we have to get permission to be seen, permission to be accepted, permission to be loved, permission for, to speak up. Like, if you are always overly explaining yourself, or you always have to, seek permission to take up space, then, you definitely fall into this category of, I say, people pleasers. I can't do eyeliner as I speak. And now, for a little pop of color, we're going with this blue. Maybelline Sky High. Ooh, wait, oh no, I just messed up the upside. This blue is so blue, it's giving electric. I was speaking to a friend about it, and the thing about shadow work, it's not like a one-day thing. It's something that takes time, because sometimes you can also meet people or encounter people that trigger certain protectors in you, and you feel like you have to start all over again. I find myself reacting or getting like, closing myself off. When it happens, I almost feel like my teenage self. Like, I feel like I'm 14 again, and it doesn't make sense. The way that I have to retreat, I have to like do things that would maybe calm me down at that age. So like, I don't know, watch cartoons or just like eat certain snacks, certain foods. And it's so crazy to think that I'm like, wow, at my big age, I still feel the fear, I still feel the things or the sort of feeling that I was feeling as a teenager. But then that's just your shadow self or your protective self just coming out. But I also think that sometimes it's okay to have those feelings come out just so you can understand them, instead of immediately trying to suppress them. Because once they come out is then when you can fully understand, okay, this feeling makes me feel like this does this to me, this X, Y, and Z. So just accepting them and understanding them, I think, is definitely the first step. And I think because you cannot feel everything all at once, like you don't always interact with the people that trigger you, etc. It doesn't happen in a day. It's just like a continuous thing that you have to do, but I think it's super important. I will tag below the channel that I watch that really helped me understand about shadow work and all of these things. I think it can also help somebody else that's slightly cynical as well. The thing is, if you're like not the sort of person that like likes writing things down, or you forgot your handwriting, you don't know how to write anymore, I would say as well, keeping voice notes is really fun. Or if you just want to keep vlogs, but if you don't want to share them, you don't have to share them, but just keeping videos and just like a recount of, you know, how you're feeling in the moment and everything. I think it's great. I think it's just nice to watch and rewatch. Sometimes I watch all of my old YouTube videos and I'm like, oh my god, look at her, she was so shy and now she can't keep her mouth shut. So I think it's just always nice. Also, just finding ways to express yourself in an artistic manner. I need to start painting again, and I think just that sort of like self-expression and just like bringing something out of you, I think is also just a nice way to slowly heal your shadow self. I think a good way to just know when you're experiencing something with your shadow self or your protector self is when you can physically also feel it in your body. I feel like for me, the day of my wedding, the hairstylist was 2 hours late, and everything was late after that, and I was then getting late. The ceremony was supposed to start I think at 4:30, and but then just that like feeling of, oh my god, everybody is waiting for me, it just, my stomach, I've never felt like my stomach just like stone tightened up. It tightened up so much, like I was just like, it was this crazy, it was just, I don't know, it was just this feeling. And I recently met someone that was at our wedding, and they were like, oh, how was the experience for you? They said that they felt like I was there, but then not really there, as though I was just like on autopilot or something. And I can definitely resonate with that, because that's how I felt. I think it was just like, because I had that feeling, I'm like, oh my god, there's 100 people in the heat, in the sun, on the beach, waiting for me. It's hot, it's uncomfortable, and people are thirsty and hungry, and somebody's gonna pass out. But yeah, that feeling of just being, you know, a people pleaser, or just not wanting to take up space, like that shadow, that protector, can really just like, you know, affect you physically. And that's the moment where I can feel like, oh my god, that affected me physically. And it took me like months to get through it. You know, that whole amazing, beautiful day, my mind was just occupied in this guilt state. I missed out on such a beautiful day because of me shadows, you know? So just thinking back to that, I'm like, damn, you know? So yeah, I think this is a reason you could be missing out on, or just not, it doesn't even have to be like a glorious occasion, but just in life in general, you could be missing out on life because you have all of these shadows that you have to deal with. If you can, or if you feel like you're in the mental space to do it, you can just, you know, sit down, journal, bring out those feelings and just accept those feelings, and how you can sort of know that like you're safe and you're okay and you're fine, and nothing's coming to bite you, nothing's coming to hurt you, you're just safe. Just letting your nervous system know that you're safe and you're okay, I think it's quite important. And you know, just like finding out about like shadow work and everything, I'm like, this is why this happened. But you can have protectors that are just like, grr. I feel like people also always just have a tipping point whereby they're just like, I'm not taking this anymore. You know, the way when you're at the stage and the conductor wants to pick you up and almost put you inside their vehicle. The way my protector self comes out, the way I'm just, I will swat someone. I will, do not touch me. A man touching me without my consent, oh my god. And you know, that's like my protector self that's protecting my shadow. And I think some of these like shadows that we have and protectors that we have, I'm like, you know, it's okay. You know, don't touch me. Or you know, like, turn into a dragon, turn into a chameleon if you have to. I think the point of just recognizing, you know, like, okay, I have these parts of me that will swat or fight. Any opportunity to fight a man, I will do it. I will do it. I remember this one time I was walking with my friends. I don't know where we were. I think maybe we could come or something. And this man just grabbed her. And he won't let go. And he's like, hello, beautiful. Girl, I didn't even know how to fight. I was hitting this man because, like, how are you just touching people without their consent? You know, like, what's wrong with you? You know, and I think those kinds of protectors are okay. You know, if you're gonna fight a man, do it. If you're gonna be crazy to, you know, in order to protect yourself, do it. It's okay to accept those parts of you. Like, you like to fight men, that is good. Keep it. You don't have to heal on that. Just keep that part of you, you know? Keep it. So, I feel like I sound like a crazy person. It's like, you like to fight people? Keep that part of you. But, you know, sometimes I think there's people who it can come out that they just have very reactive personalities, and that can definitely be from some shadow work that they need to do. There's people who sometimes it can be a very small inconvenience and it's just complete chaos. I think those sorts of situations, people need to do shadow work. I'm slightly sad that I didn't know about this sooner, but you know, I can also just be accepting and be like, okay, maybe I didn't need it at those aspects in my life and I just needed to have my protector self. And now that I'm old enough and in a safe space, I can then work on these things, which I think is okay. We're having this whole conversation and I completely forgot to bake. You did remind me to bake. I was just looking at my face in the mirror and I was like, something's different. Something's different. Why do I look different? I forgot to bake. I also haven't done my eyebrows. Okay. I don't know where my mind is. I'm just thinking about shadow work. How did we forget to do the brows? So shadow work isn't about becoming evil or dark. It's just about accepting yourself as a whole, like accepting all aspects of yourself. Like, for example, I would say, especially for the girlies, if you are, you know, you feel like you were loud, it's about accepting yourself being loud and not thinking that you have to be gentle and timid and like, you know, like, you know, it's just about accepting that. For example, if you like snails, that's okay. You just, for some reason, you just like snails, that's fine. You don't have to hide it. Just accept it. And or if you, I don't know, you like the color neon green. Gosh, I still have judgment on my face. You like the color neon green. That's okay. You know, just be there in your truth, be there in your neon greenness and accept it. And you don't have to like neutral brown because everybody in society is being like, okay, you have to like neutral brown and wear neutral brown and just be neutral brown. And I think human beings in general, because we're just psychologically tuned into seeking social acceptance, but deep down you're hiding like such a beautiful, wonderful, great part of yourself. Recognize the parts of you that are being hidden because of survival. Slowly just learn how to integrate those parts in you know, when needed. And then also just even your protective self that comes out because of that, like even just in situations whereby you're like, okay, you can't go to a board meeting wearing neon green. There's where you can just allow your protective self to come out and be like, okay, for the survival of the species, we're gonna do this. Wait, survival? Is that survival? Yes, survival is the word. Is it survival? Yeah, I think so. But just for the survival of the species, we're not gonna wear neon green to this meeting, even though it's our favorite color. But after this meeting, we're gonna wear neon green, and we're wearing neon green underpants. Nobody knows, but we're still in our joy. You know, we're still in our happiness. So just accepting those parts and just learning how to balance it, I think, is very important. But it's crazy, learning about shadow work, I'm like, damn, the whole planet would be so happy if we all just did it. Also, if you feel like the shadow work that you need to do is just too much to deal with, then I would definitely recommend just seeing a therapist. And honestly, I think what therapists do, or from like the experience that I've had, I've only ever been to 2 sessions, but I feel like they sort of do shadow work because they like sort of like let you bring out like all of your trauma and everything. So you know, you bring all of those things out and you work through that. So I think from time to time everybody's just doing shadow work without really knowing what it is or giving it that specific name. Also, when you do shadow work, you also find yourself just becoming more creative, being more za or gra or ya, you know, just letting yourself just be. Also, I feel like after somebody does shadow work and you figure out why you're a people pleaser, why do you just accept things as they are, why you're a perfectionist, I think after you do all of that work is then when you can get into your villain era. And that doesn't necessarily mean be like a terrible person or being mean or being cruel. No, it just means not abandoning yourself. And honestly, I feel like after learning about shadow work and why we react the way that we do, and just how the way things are and people are, etc., I'm just like, okay, I finally understand the Disney villains. This is why they're evil. This is why they are the way that they are. But that's not the kind of villain I'm talking about, but just like the sense of put yourself first. I gotta put me first, Lucian. So finally, heading into your villain era just means not overly explaining yourself, not begging to be understood. There's no need to explain yourself. It's just like you said what you said and that's it. You mean what you mean and that's it. You don't have to overly explain yourself. I mean, a little bit, not shrinking your voice. If you're in a situation whereby something is happening and you're uncomfortable, there's no need for you to shrink your voice. There's no need for you to just accept it and take it as it is. Be loud about it. Also, not softening your truth to protect other people's egos. Also, just choosing yourself without guilt. I'm saying this out loud, not just for you, but for myself as well. I talked about earlier how like during the wedding, I just felt like this crazy anxiety in my stomach, and it was just this tightness and just like this worry for everybody else. And I think it was my body also just reacting to me betraying myself. It's like, why am I worried about everybody else at this wedding when this is my wedding? Okay, I can't blink really quickly, but it's like, why am I worried about, oh, there's a bird in the tree? Why am I worried about everybody else at this wedding when this is my wedding? And it's also like, when people, I feel like when guests come to the wedding, they come to celebrate you and to be with you and everything, but also it's like that day is for you, but then it's like you're worried about everybody else, and it's like you should be thinking about yourself as well, like just be in that moment. So not necessarily just a wedding, but just like in general. The best way that I can describe how our body reacts to us betraying ourselves is that lump that we get in our throat. Somebody does something to you and you don't speak up about it, you then just develop this lump in your throat, and it just grows and grows and grows, and and that's just you just holding in that rage, holding in that anger because you don't want to say anything to upset anyone, but deep down I think that's the best way I can describe your body reacting to you betraying yourself. And I think by not betraying yourself is just by speaking up, be like, this that you did X, Y, and Z, it did not make me happy, I'm not satisfied, no, it's unacceptable. I think that's, if you then do that, you then just release that feeling and you're no longer growing these potatoes in your throat, because you shouldn't be swallowing potatoes for free. It should at least be like good fries. This is the finished look. We're looking we're looking unapologetic. We're just looking like, yeah, it's me. So